You're listening to The Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my co-host Joe Dilworth. Hello, Joe. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I was just hoping that I would just get through that intro with no problems, and it seemed to go okay, so I'm happy.
I think it's fine. I'll
Thank you.
sign off on it.
Thank you. You will sign off on it. Good.
Yes.
I appreciate that. So we're going to get to some stuff on this episode. We're going to talk about What If, and we're going to talk about Dune at the Venice Film Festival and some other stuff.
Yes.
If you haven't seen What If, where Doctor Strange loses his heart instead of his hands, then there'll be spoilers for that in this episode later on. But before that, you can find us on Stitcher and on Google Podcasts and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And if you could rate the show on Apple, that would be great. We'd appreciate it. And if you could, go to the Patreon, maybe patreon.com/TheFlickcast and drop a couple of dollars for the show. That's cool. We'd appreciate that too.
But if you shekels.
But if you can't do that right now, which I totally get also, then a rating is free. Just a few seconds of your time. So that would be awesome.
It is. All it takes is typing, and you're going to type a comment somewhere anyway, so just do it for our podcast, right? Come on.
Right, exactly. If you're going to rage comment about something anyway, you might as well rage comment about this show. I think.
Exactly. Yes, you should hate rage comment on it. No,
rage against the dying of the light. No, that doesn't.
Of the podcast.
That doesn't apply really. Speaking of dying, no. Speaking of getting fired. It got dark. This is going to be a dark show. I got to warn you. There's some darkness in the What If episode for sure, but this is going to be a darker show maybe. We're just following up for a second on our conversation last week about Jeopardy. I know most people don't care, but I did want to just follow up and say that guy who was going to be the host and then stepped down because of his past problematic behavior has now been fired completely from the show. So
he has. He's not even going to be a producer anymore.
So I hate to see people lose their jobs. It's bad when people lose their jobs. I mean, not always. If they deserve it, especially. But this guy clearly had a lot more problems that were probably not coming to light. So good riddance, I say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And obviously, it was known. If it was not, if it was it seemed to be a pretty quick decision to fire him. So it was obviously something that was known. Here's the thing: in situations like this, why would the owners or runners of the show or whoever else is the producers not go, hey, there's a little bit of a problem here, maybe we shouldn't do this? Or did they say, well, nobody will really know, it'll be fine? Because I know, the argument is, oh, cancel culture is gone, great. And I don't think it's cancel culture, it's that we're not tolerating things anymore. But it just seems like that these things keep happening, and why wouldn't somebody go, or a group of somebody's go, yeah, you know what, there are these things he said, maybe we should not do this. I don't know.
Well, it's cancel culture because cancel culture sounds cooler to say than we're not tolerating that shit anymore. It's a good soundbite. But yeah, I agree with you. It's obvious there were problems that no one really addressed adequately, and they probably finally decided that we're getting a lot of bad publicity. I'm sure a lot of it was PR related, but we're getting a lot of bad publicity for this, and there's other problems that are probably going to come to light. So we might as well just cut ties now. I'm sure he got a nice severance package. I'm not worried about his livelihood. No, he'll probably end up on another show next year after he's rehabilitated his image, as people do. Yeah. But I have no problem with this kind of action. If people are terrible and they, like we talked about last week, if people are terrible and they need to be having a minder or a person around them to make sure or help them make sure they're not terrible, then you probably should hire them or keep them on. And it turns out they're not going to. Victory.
That's kind of my thing. It's like they knew all this, yet they were still like, no, he'll be fine. Yeah. So, and then I don't know. It just seems like it would be less expensive and less work to vet people better and hire someone like, I don't know, the person that Alex Trebek wanted them to hire for host, but at least hires someone that's like, yeah, this one isn't going to be problematic. Whereas, like I said, they must have gone, well, he's got some problems here, and we have to have a minder for him, but it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Yeah. I mean, well, you know what? We could probably speculate a lot, but what I'm just going to say is I'm going to take credit, or we should take credit for getting him fired. So
yes, we
did that.
We brought it up.
We brought it up. We did that. So fuck that guy. And that's pretty much all we should talk about. That's it. This show's over. I'm trying to keep the show shorter, so that was it. Good night.
Yep, there we go. Thanks, everybody.
Cheerio. Sorry, I was watching Ted Lasso some more. Cheerio, everyone. Oh, I don't think anyone says cheerio in that show.
Still haven't watched that show. It sounds like everyone hates it now, though. Apparently, it's not as fun in its second season. Or
it's
something.
Definitely. Well, you have it's an arc, right? You build up the characters, and then you got to tear them down a bit because apparently it's only going to be a 3-season show, 3 and out.
Okay.
There's an arc for the entire show. I can't even speak English today. And then the entire show. And all the characters, and it's supposed to last 3 seasons. I mean, partially it's because Jason Sudeikis is a busy guy, and scheduling around him is more difficult. Because you can't really have a show called Ted Lasso without Ted Lasso in it, probably. So if he's not available, then you gotta.
I think they've done that with some shows back in the 70s where
they absolutely have. So
retitle it or whatever.
Ted just dies one day, and now the show's called something else.
It'll be Ted's Boys. Will be the
Ted's Boys. Oh, that's good. I like that. Or it could be named after the football club. It could be just
right.
I don't know. Anyway,
exactly.
You can get Rob McElhenney to replace Ted Lasso because he already owns a football club anyway. So in real life,
as I've said. They just need to let us write all the stuff because we've got it nailed.
Let's be honest. I would watch that show too. I mean, obviously, Jason Sudeikis does an amazing job as Ted Lasso, and the show is really well done. Everyone in the show is excellent, and the writing is excellent and everything. But I would also watch a show with Rob McElhenney running a football club too. And if as long as Ryan Reynolds showed up occasionally because they co-own the club together, which I think is adorable. So.
Well, then if it's going to be like a complete 3-season thing, I'm just going to wait till the whole show's done. And then
you could. That's probably another year away at least, but you could wait. It's going to be hard to know, especially in the 3rd season, whatever spoilers happen. It's going to be hard not to hear about it, probably. But
no, because I don't really pay attention to any Ted Lasso news. Usually things I don't watch, I don't particularly.
Oh, that's smart. That's really smart. That's smart.
Because it's like, well, it might be something I watch eventually, and I don't want to be like completely spoiled.
I'm just going to tell you what happened. I'm going to bring it up. Although I will say that I haven't been watching every episode this season yet because I kind of want to wait for them all to drop. Like you, I want to have them all. Bless you. Excuse me. I haven't been watching all the episodes of Ted Lasso because I'm kind of waiting for them all to drop on Apple TV so I can watch them all at once. I'm so spoiled now, as are many people, I'm sure. I just want all of them at once. I don't want to wait anymore.
I don't want to wait.
What a terrible
episodes.
What a terrible life we have now. Oh, poor me. I have to wait a week for a show.
That's not even a first world problem.
It's not even. It's an outer space problem or something. Speaking of outer space, by the way, let's switch over to Dune at the Venice Film Festival, which, according to reports, got a 7-minute standing ovation.
It's like a 7 to 8 minute standing ovation, and it only stopped because the director was like, "We have to vacate the room."
Yeah, we got to turn the room over to some other show over the movie.
Now there have been some other things this year at the Venice Film Festival that have gotten standing ovations, but those have been like 2 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, so this one got the longest.
Yeah, and that's
because size matters,
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's cool, especially it being a sci-fi movie, that it's gotten that kind of critical response, and apparently they're all raving about it too, and people that have seen previews and
I know a few people who've seen the movie, and from what I hear, and I didn't want to get too many details, but from what I hear, they're just like blown away by it. So,
right,
and people whose opinions
are actually valid.
Well, I don't want to say it like that, but people whose opinions I would trust to talk about movies.
So what you're saying is, if it was getting a rave review from a YouTuber named, let me check my notes here, Doomcock, you would probably not.
Well, I don't know. I'm interested in what Doomcock has to say about many things, but maybe not about Dune. I don't know. Is there a guy named Doomcock on YouTube?
Yeah, and his whole shtick is alternating between Kathleen Kennedy being fired and Alex Kurtzman being fired, and Star Trek being canceled, which has been like his whole YouTube channel for the last,
Why do you subject yourself to Doomcock's
I don't actually
prediction?
Watch it. It's just like So any of those clickbait articles you see about Alex Kurtzman's being fired and Star Trek is being restructured, it's the originator is that dumbass,
Mr. Doomcock to you,
Mr. Cock,
Mr. Cock. Is it Dick? Or
that's all
Mr.
one
Dick?
word. Yeah,
it's all one word. Richard. Anyway,
it's like this whole series of websites that have all, Giant Freaking Robot, and we have this covered, and Comics News, that are all, I think, basically run by the same group of people, but
they just hate everything, and they just talk
they occasionally come up with a new website just to say, oh yeah, we're not related to those, and it's all the stories originate from.
It's funny how they pick names, though, because I don't know if I was going to have a YouTube channel, I'm not sure Doomcock would be the name I would choose. And I'm surprised that passed YouTube, whatever you want to call it, because it's got the word cock in it.
He wears a mask and all this stuff, and it's just.
Is it a cock mask? Because I'm confused.
No, that's why I'm like, well.
Yeah, there's another one called. Yeah, you should mention Giant Robot, but it's not Giant Robot. It's something else like that.
It's like Giant Freaking Robot.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's definitely give them airtime because that's good. But,
it's just the whole cottage industry of just making shit up.
Well, sure, because everyone can say nice things about stuff, but you want to be edgy and say shit about everything. So
and
we shit on all creative endeavors. Do they like anything?
No. And all you need is the visits to your website to get that ad revenue, right? So
that's why you got to pump up the ad revenue, because
that's like those websites that are like, hear this heartwarming story, and you go and you have to click through like 18 pages to get up for each paragraph or something. I'm like, what the hell is this stupid shit?
Yeah, they started that a while back, but lists of things. You got to click through the pictures. Every picture has an ad on it. I mean, you know what? As a person who runs a website, I totally get that, but I find it frustrating, so I'm not going to subject other people to that. Although we don't post that much on the website, mostly for the podcast and some articles and stuff. But I get it. And you know what? I mean, maybe we're just doing it wrong, man. Maybe we'd make more money on this podcast if we just said fuck and hate everything. And I was like, I could be, what would my handle be? Fuck you, and you could be fuck yeah or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And
fuck everything. That's the name of our new show.
Here's a better way to monetize it.
How about this? Your opinion fucking sucks. How was that?
We'll have the podcast out, and when you go to listen to it, you get to listen to 2 minutes, and then you have to click to the next page to get the next 2 minutes.
Oh, I like that.
See?
You know what would happen, though? People wouldn't listen. They would just go, you know what?
Well,
listen, we have enough trouble getting people to listen to the show as it is, and making it more complicated would be.
We don't want to make it more complicated.
Counterproductive, I would imagine. But I don't. I would say that I'm not shy about occasionally expressing a negative opinion about something, and you're not either. We do that, but I don't think we constantly say negative things. I just can't. I mean, because I like stuff. I like many things, and I know that I'm going to love Dune. I hope.
Yes. Well, there's just a whole series of YouTubers that are like, they apparently all have, because Hollywood is just filled of insiders that love talking bad about whatever they're working on. So they all have trusted sources in the industry or on whatever production. I'm like, that seems to be a lot of people that are negative about the job they have. That's kind of weird, but
well, no, because they all want to direct. They all think they can do it better. So
yeah,
I mean, I believe that. I believe that there's some disgruntled people for sure. Having worked in the business, I know there is. There's always going to be somebody complaining in the back when, like, setting up a shot or somebody's like, oh, this is taking so long. This is ridiculous. Why would
I could do this better.
I could do this so much better.
Put the camera over there. Yeah.
Put the camera over there. It's going to look so much better, man. Why aren't you doing coverage? What's going on? There's always those doomcocks. And so there are always going to be people who think they could do it better. And I say, go for it. If you can do it better, do it, man.
But are there enough of them that would just tell some random guy with a YouTube page that, oh yeah, so, my boss is getting fired and this whole thing's going to get canceled? I don't think so.
I don't know.
People like working.
They're anonymous for one thing, so that's why they don't talk shit. See, that's the thing. If you have a problem, at least have the balls to say it. Don't just be anonymous.
My favorite is when they cite internet sources. I'm like, internet sources, you're citing your own YouTube.
You're sourcing another site you already own. So it's
internet
funny.
Sources anyway.
Yeah, well, because you can't trust anything you see on the internet, obviously. But
I didn't really mean to get off on a.
No, and that happens with us. We just sort of segue into shit. No, I mean, it kind of fits because I guarantee you, there's going to be people talking shit about Dune, how it's like
Yeah.
self-indulgent, or it's like this. Oh, the guy only wants his movie in the theaters, and that's this, and what an egotistical prick, or it's too long, or
Right.
Zendaya's terrible because they'll focus on the female roles.
Or
Or
Duncan Idaho would never say that and act like that.
Duncan
Like, what the
Idaho would
hell?
never act like Jason
Because
Momoa.
he's a real person, So
Totally a real person, yeah. And I've read Dune, and so I have ownership of all those characters now.
right.
I should be the one. I should be the arbiter of how they act in movies. So
Yes.
there will be people shitting on the movie. I guarantee it. But that's okay. I mean, I don't think it's going to affect the performance of the film. Although I will say, I'm delighted to see that Shang-Chi
Yes.
seems to be doing well in theaters. I'm not going to
Yeah.
rush out to the theater to see it, but that's okay. I am surprised, though, kind of, that it also didn't come on Disney Plus, and sort of slightly disappointed. But I get it. I mean, they don't want to go.
Well, so
They don't want everyone in that cast to sue. Not
well,
that
I
they
think it
would,
was one of the Disney executives talked about that, and they said they said hindsight's 2020. If they had known that things were going to kick back up again, they would have totally done it. But by the time they realized how bad the Delta variant was and stuff like that, they didn't have the time to organize it. So they
No
said,
one
yeah,
expects a
they
Spanish
should've.
Inquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I can say.
But yeah, no, I'm glad it's doing well. I did. I will see it when it's not in the theater, probably. But I did do some homework for it. I did watch the Marvel short, "All Hail to the King," or "Hail to the King," whatever it's called, with the further adventures of Trevor Slattery.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Which was it was pretty funny. I think it's like 13, 15 minutes or whatever, but it's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean it's doing well in the theater, so that's good.
Yes,
I'm thrilled.
yes.
The great experiment, the great Marvel Disney experiment seems to be working. So good for everybody involved. I say that with tongue in cheek because they
I think I'm curious to see if they actually can pull it off after 25 films. So
No, but you remember what they said on
Yeah.
we talked about the earnings call, because that's what we do. It's a business
the
podcast.
experiment.
Yeah, the experiment about releasing a film fronted by a mostly Asian cast. I'm like,
I don't think that's what he meant, though, and that's what Kevin Feige said. They didn't.
I kind of think it's what he meant, to be honest. But
Do you?
Kevin
Oh,
Feige probably didn't mean that, but I think the other guy probably did, because
Okay.
to them it's all an experiment. Everything
Yeah.
is an experiment. Everything's a gamble. Everything's going to fail because they're cynical studio executives. So they feel like the bottom line is the important thing, which I can understand. But they're not in it for. I don't think they're in it as much for the creative aspects of it as Feige is. I think Feige actually gives a shit, or he seems to give a shit about the quality or the creativity, and not just about the dollars. It helps that those things seem to be going hand in hand for him, and the movies seem to be making bank, which is good. So hopefully there'll be more Shang-Chi movies, and there'll be more, movies in general. I would like to see lots of stuff. And
that's
like
our next podcast.
unsung properties that I would like to see. I'd
That's
like
our
to see
next
an Iron-
podcast that Kevin Feige's getting fired. So
Yeah, well, what does Doomcock think about that? I'm sure that he probably thinks
trusted sources tell me Kevin Feige's out.
he's out.
Yeah.
No, he's going to direct. That's what he wants.
Well, he is going to direct a Star Wars movie.
Because why wouldn't you? If you're in
Right.
there, they'd say, Kevin, thanks so much for doing such a great job. What can we do for you? He's like, well, I would like to direct a Star Wars film.
And apparently that's a sign that Feige's going to take over Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy's getting fired. So,
Well, I mean, they might do that. I don't know. Although George picked her, so I don't know. That's probably pretty ironclad. I don't know.
I bet there's some kind of legal stuff that says, yeah, no, if at any point she's not running this, it reverts back to me or something.
Wow. I
Wicked.
guess George has confidence in her, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder, we'll never know, of course, but I wonder if
And I don't really care, to be honest. But
No, I don't. You know what I want is the best possible continuations of the Star Wars stories. And that doesn't have to be Luke and Han and Leia and all that. What I want is great Star Wars stuff.
Yes.
I don't feel like we got as much of it in the theaters. I know you disagree, but that's fine. But I feel like the TV side of it, the Disney Plus side of it, has been more enjoyable with Mandalorian than any recent Star Wars film. But they have different audiences and different requirements and stuff. So I would say that the future is still, not written, as it were. And we'll see more Star Wars movies, and we'll see more Star Wars TV shows and all that stuff.
I'm going to be honest too. I mean, I did like the sequel trilogy, but I think we can all agree, other than like maybe Empire Strikes Back, that the film presence of Star Wars, the theater presence of Star Wars, has been pretty dodgy over the years, right? So,
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, they're not like,
Star Wars was an amazing film because of its epic
yeah,
nature. I'm not saying it's a great piece of cinema. There's definitely flaws in Star Wars. I know.
sure,
Oh, the nerds are turning in their graves right now.
yeah, yeah,
But I didn't feel that way at the time. Obviously, it was amazing. But an Empire, I still think is, yeah, as you said, is the most solid film because it was made
yes,
by the most accomplished director of all of them.
yeah,
And then the prequel trilogy was, was adequate, and there's some great points, and there's some great moments in the J.J. Abrams
yes.
stuff and the Ryan Wilson stuff too. There's some great moments, but they don't make great
Ryan
movies. So.
Wilson, Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Wilson, did I say Ryan Wilson? I was thinking
Yeah,
Rainn Wilson from The Office. Ryan Johnson, thank you.
that I'd watch a Star Wars movie directed by Rainn Wilson. That would be fun.
It could be interesting, yeah. Now he goes by Rainn Wilson, right? But it's still spelled the
Yes,
same as Ryan Wilson. So is it Ryan
yeah.
Wilson or Rainn Wilson? I'm
I'm
confused.
pretty sure it's Rainn Wilson.
It's like Jerry Anderson or Jerry Anderson, but then it turned out it wasn't Jerry Anderson.
There's not a second Jerry Anderson.
Yeah, that is a conversation we had during the pre-show.
Yes.
I just want to touch on that for a moment.
Sure,
I know
sure.
you're a fan of Space
Oh,
1999, as I am. The Jerry Anderson TV show with Martin Landau, Barbara Bain. Well, was that the 70s? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Late
Anyway,
70s.
briefly,
mid-70s.
Space 1999, the humans store all of their nuclear waste on the moon, and one day the moon waste explodes.
It surprisingly goes
Surprisingly goes bad, yeah. Shit goes south quickly. And the moon is blasted out of Earth's orbit into space and free floating off and having adventures. What that does to Earth, we don't know. Assumed it destroys the Earth, I would imagine, or at least
Yeah, but we don't care because it's all about
fucks it up quite severely. Because I would feel like there'd be no tides and stuff. So anyway, but we don't talk about the Earth. But so they go off into space and have adventures, and it lasts a glorious 2 seasons. But a lot of episodes, like 20, like 40 something episodes, right? Because there's
Yeah, I
the
think
seasons
it
were
did like
ginormously long.
25, 26 or something per
Yeah.
season. So
And then the second season was like totally different than the first. I love the fact that it changed and they brought in new characters that you never saw before. Like Tony.
Right.
Where did Tony come from? He's Tony,
And
the chief of security. He's like, what? Who is this guy?
some characters left with no explanation.
Yeah, what was Victor? What was his name? The doctor?
Yeah, Victor Bergman was
Barry
just
Morris's character. Yeah, he just like
suddenly
just
gone, and it's like, it's all right.
I
It'll
think
be
they
fine.
were. I think they were worried that the show was skewing too old.
Could be. I mean, if we're being honest, shows back in the 60s, 70s, 80s into the 90s didn't care about stuff like that. They would retool and characters would leave and they didn't really care because, for the most part, you're only going to see the show once, maybe twice if it's
Right.
repeated. Eventually, syndication came in, but even then it was like shows aren't going to be shown in order, so it didn't really matter.
Right.
So it was really only until like the last probably 10 or 15 years that a lot of that was really paid attention to. You'd have like that. Here's my favorite. It's like any show that went like 3 or more seasons, you'd have like this, they would always have like this repertoire of guest actors that would appear sometimes in the same season as completely different characters.
Right.
But nobody cared because it was
Right.
just like, yeah, that's all you cared about was the episode. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, 48 episodes in 2 years,
Yeah.
2 seasons. That's a lot. I loved the show when I was a kid. I had the Eagle and all that stuff and everything. And I liked Martin Landau because I was a big fan of Mission Impossible.
I'm 3D printing an Eagle, and it's been a while
Nice.
since I've gotten to it because I'm having some issues with my 3D printer. But that's a different story.
Bummer,
But-
dude.
But I will someday have a huge, like a 2-foot.
Yeah, I still have the die-cast Eagle
I wish I did.
that they came out with back in the day. The Eagle's was a great one of the great classic sort of spaceships.
Yeah, it was a terrific ship. You
Yeah.
could change out the modules in the middle. So
Yeah,
if you
it was-
wanted to do science, you could have
I
science.
would
That was great.
I would guarantee you that like the space shuttle had some influence on that. I just guarantee you that
Could
because
be.
nerds at NASA watch Space 1999. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're
and-
probably,
and
that's a
Star
pretty
Trek,
good
of course.
design.
Yeah. But of course, the Eagle's also based on what ships look like in the Apollo program and all that stuff too. But Space 99 is a great show. If you've never seen it, it's available. We could talk about it for hours, but
But the reason we're bringing it up
But the reason we're bringing it up, yeah, is just because we saw online that they're coming out with the Space 1999 technical manual, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah,
I want to buy that. I know this appeals to like 3 people who are listening right now, but it's cool. I'm gonna buy it. So
here's the thing: I'm a huge collector and aficionado of technical manuals and real life like reference books for things that don't exist. Sure. I eat them up. I love them. So I remember as a kid,
we didn't build a base on the moon. Wait, I'm confused.
It's a documentary.
It's not a documentary. Oh my god, ridiculous.
I mean, as a kid, one of the holy grails that I eventually got to get, because at the time it was out of print when I was a kid and hard to find, was the original Star Trek technical manual. It's since been reprinted in more recent years in various formats, but that was like
I've still got mine.
I still have the original one I bought back in the day, and that
with
was
that
like
cool
one of those,
that cool red cover.
Yeah, that was like finding that was, or at least finding it for a reasonable price. Because I remember I hounded a guy at a comic book store that I used to go to, and he's finally like, "Hey, I got one," but it was like $60, and I'm like, I don't have $60. There's no way I'm going to be able to get that. But then somehow, like, my mom found one someplace like cheap. I don't know if she got it from the guy cheap or whatever, but I got one for Christmas, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, it was a cool book. I loved that kind of stuff too, because I was a huge Star Trek nerd, as you might expect. Yeah. I remember we went to a Star Trek convention and we waited in line because my mom was cool about this kind of stuff. We waited in line for a while, and I got Franz Joseph, and more importantly, Gene Roddenberry to sign it. So,
do you still have that?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
It's on my bookshelf in the guest room, actually. But it's just, yeah, I still got it. Franz Joseph and Gene Roddenberry, more importantly.
What I liked about that one,
by the way, meeting Gene Roddenberry was like a total like weird moment for me, because it's one of those first times as a kid where I was like, this is somebody that I really like. It's like a hero almost, because you created a show that means so much to me. It was like when I first saw George Lucas across the room one time, but this was actually worse almost, because it was Gene Roddenberry, and he was so cool. He was so nice about it. He's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you got this book." I don't remember what he said exactly. It was like 100 years ago, but it was pretty damn cool. But anyway, sorry, what you're saying?
Now I don't know. No.
Oh shit. Sorry.
What I liked about that one, and not all technical manuals do this, but what I liked about that is it treated it. There was no like, technical manual from the hit show Star Trek. It was just like, this was an actual. It was designed and looked exactly like an actual technical manual, so it was kind of cool that it was like totally in universe and not like anything that would, pull you out. It didn't say, "Oh yeah, this is the ship from episode blah blah blah." No, it was, it was cool. I don't know.
As if you could go to the library computer and just look it up.
Right, exactly.
Computer.
So,
oh, sorry.
And then it had like articles of the Federation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was it was super cool. And then of course they came out with the Star Trek blueprints, which I also have.
Yes, I have those too. As in like a little plastic folder, or thing with a thing that snaps shut and all that. And it was those were great.
Which is where I first found out that the Enterprise had a bowling alley.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh, I totally would work on that ship. It's got a bowling alley.
Who knew that the Enterprise had a bowling alley? That was pretty neat.
Yes.
So you have to imagine that was a conversation that happened with Roddenberry. He's like, yeah, I love bowling. So he's probably like a bowling guy. He's like, yeah, you got to put a bowling alley in the Enterprise.
Yeah,
so, anyway, we've transitioned. We've segued away from what we were talking about, but that's okay. If you've never seen Star Trek, no, of course you have. If you haven't seen Star Trek,
there's this show called Star Trek.
What are you doing with your life if you've never seen Star Trek? So I don't know I suppose the question is, if you were starting Star Trek today, like if your kid had never seen Star Trek, what series would you have them start with?
I'd probably have them watch the current stuff and then introduce them to the previous shows. Yeah.
I think now, because I tried to get my son to watch the OG and he was like not interested, because it's so. It's dated. I mean, the effects are dated, and the performances and everything. So we did Next Generation, and he kind of liked that for a while. So I think Next Generation is still almost dated now too, especially like the wood paneling on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like the new stuff is a little bit too violent, maybe. And there's more sexual stuff in it too, don't you think? I mean,
That's probably true. I
there's a
would
lot of
say
boning.
true. I mean, maybe Enterprise, because that was kind of the first.
Isn't that the weakest episode or the weakest series though?
No, but it was. I don't know if it's the weakest, but it was because that's Voyager. But I don't know if it's weakest.
How dare you?
But it was kind of like, I mean, it takes place before all the other shows and kind of introduces a lot of things along the way. So I don't know, and it's kind of a hybrid of sensibilities of the original series. Yet it's got kind of, although I haven't watched in a while, it might be dated now, but
it's a bit dated. But then they tried to sex things up too with Jillian Blaylock. I mean, they had her like, I still remember that episode where I'm like, this show is jumping the shark, to use an old term, where her and I can't remember the navigator guy's name. Anyway, they're sitting in this like decompression chamber or something, rubbing gel on each other.
Yes.
I was like, what am I watching?
It didn't jump the shark. It almost jumped the Vulcan.
Oh, hello. I'm like, what? Not that I minded her getting oiled up. It was fine. But it was like, this is not really, what is happening?
Yeah, why are we spending like 20 minutes on this in the episode?
Well, obviously they're going to get together at some point, but it's
right.
yeah, it was weird.
Well, maybe the animated stuff would be a good place to start. Like Lower Decks is a lot of fun. That's a lot.
Or
of
the
fun.
original animated series.
Yeah, that still actually looks really good. I mean, it's dated as far as animation of the time, but it's still really good. But Lower Decks, the new series it's on now, is a lot of fun. That's a really
I like Lower Decks, but I feel like there's a lot of inside jokes on that one, kind of.
But I don't think it would alienate anyone. I think it's still fun.
That's actually stuff. I like that idea. Okay, so that settles that for the moment. Just getting back to Dune for a second, I still feel like that is the only movie that would get me into a theater.
Yes.
I'm still probably not going to go, even though I really want to.
I know. I was going to, and I was prepared to do that, but I don't think I can do that.
The only way I would do it is if I went like in the middle of the day when everyone's at work and I'm just the only one in the theater, or if I can find a way to get like Draft House to rent me the entire theater by myself.
Or if you spend like the $200 or $300 and just rent it, and you're the only one that goes.
Exactly. That's what I was like, I would consider that, but maybe not for $300. But a lot of times I've gone to the movies during the day, in the middle of the week, when I could do that kind of thing, and it was basically empty. There was like one or two people in there, so I would consider that maybe. Yeah, or I feel like it will definitely get reissued or re-released in theaters next year, because if they really think it's something that needs to be experienced in a theater, I could watch it at home and then watch it in a theater, because I feel like it's a movie that we're going to watch more than once. Or, I mean, there's always that chance I'm going to go, no.
It
doesn't work for me.
We talked about this before. That was going to be the movie that I'm like, yeah, that's going to be the one I'm going to go back to the theaters.
Not now.
Back, because things are settling down and all that. But current climate, I can't foresee seeing it in the theater. I mean, thankfully, maybe not thankfully, but thankfully, it's also simul-releasing on HBO Max.
Yeah, so it's next month already.
Yeah, so we'll be able to see it. I'm definitely not going to the theater in the next month. So it's like...
Yeah, it's October or something, right? So that's, next month.
So, I mean, that means obviously Shang-Chi, it's going to be 45 days or, 2 months or whatever before I get to see that. And James Bond is supposed to come out in October, and there's no way I'm going to go see that in the theater. So,
yeah, there's another new trailer for that. That still looks good.
But I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get to see that. So it's like...
But it's okay.
Basically... Get your vaccination so I can go back to the theater is what I'm saying.
Yeah, damn it, you're affecting Joe's fun.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, losers?
I'm disappointed because
stop taking horse tranquilizer or dewormer and get actual vaccinations.
Yes.
I'm talking to you, Joe Rogan, you fucking dick.
I really wanted to see Dune and James Bond in the theater, and I'm not gonna. I think I agree with you. I think a lot of these are going to be re-released next year.
I feel like they will be, yeah. I mean, if they can wring a couple bucks out of it, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, but because of everything that's going on, Black Widow and Shang-Chi are like the first Marvel movies I've not seen in a theater, and I've seen all of them up till then with my kid, and that was like, that's an experience that is probably a thing of the past now, right? So,
I guess, I mean, maybe. I still think you can go to the movies with your kid later, but yeah, to experience those might be difficult. But then I really do think that they'll just have like a special thing where it's like, oh, here's all the things you missed during COVID, and
Right.
back in theaters for a limited engagement because it's not like they have to make prints or anything. They just beam it over to the theater. So and
That's
theaters
true.
will be thrilled because they'll get more business. I think it's a win for everybody and especially fans because you can actually go to a theater hopefully once there's more of a vaccination thing. But anyway, it's a small problem to have, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I feel sort of silly complaining about it, but I mean that's it's kind of our focus. Pop culture stuff is our focus, so it does affect us
yes.
because we can't go to the theater. But in the scheme of things, it's minor. Believe me,
But
it's a
you
minor
should,
inconvenience.
unless you have like a very serious, legitimate medical reason, you should go get vaccinated for far more important reasons than
Well,
us
like
going
not
back to the
dying
theater.
for one thing.
And people around you not dying.
Yeah,
So
that's
you know,
important. I think that's not
especially
important.
like there are people, as we keep saying, there are people that legitimately have medical reasons why they can't get the vaccine, which is why everyone else should for those people and for everyone else. So
And for yourself.
stop. You know what though? If I was the people that made the heart dewormer stuff, I'd start charging like $800 a dose or something like that. It's like, hey, let's make some money off of this.
I'm just saying that. Well, I don't want to get.
I'm
I
like,
don't want to
what?
get into. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories with Joe Rogan, so I won't. But anyway,
Fucking idiot.
moving on.
Yeah.
That fucking idiot has way more listeners than we do, so I don't know. Maybe we're doing it wrong. I doubt it, but maybe. Although I sleep fine at night, so I don't know.
What they should do, and what somebody should do, and maybe we can start that here. It's like, hey, listen, all these places that give out the vaccines, they're starting to rebel. What's actually in the shot is the heart dewormer. It's not the vaccine, so you're good. Go get your vaccine. You're actually
good.
getting the heart dewormer stuff.
As someone pointed out, someone more eloquent than I, they will trust Pfizer for like Viagra.
Yeah.
A pill that affects your dick, but you won't trust them to give you a vaccine. So
Yes,
there you
to
go.
keep you alive.
Keep you alive.
Hey, all right.
Anyway, Dune is
Yes.
going to be a cool movie, and there probably won't be any dicks in it. Maybe or
I don't know. There's some characters that are pretty dickish in it.
well, that's true. That's true. Baron Harkonnen and
I don't think they're taking heart dewormer, but maybe they're taking sandworm dewormer.
oh, I see what you did there.
Maybe that's what spice is. It's
It's a dewormer, yeah.
yes.
And Piter or Peter, depending on however you want to
Right,
say it,
right.
he's pretty evil, and of course
Yeah,
the
he's-
Baron and the Emperor and all the other people in the movie, basically except the Atreides, are all bad, and the Fremen,
Yes.
of course. But
And Duncan's kind of cool.
well, anyone who works for the Atreides and the Atreides family are they're all pretty cool, and the people that work with the Atreides are cool for the most part.
But hey, we should
hey.
now ask an important question.
What if we move this the fuck on?
What if? Yes.
What if? Yeah, I always forget. It's funny to watch. What if? I mean, not funny, but I find it amusing. They play the fanfare, Marvel, whatever you call it, the intro music, and they go to animation, and then they start the credits of the show.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Wright and Benedict Cumberbatch and
Space.
blah 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 blah.
Time.
Yeah. So yes, it's we're gonna talk about the most recent episode of What If Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands.
It should just be
And-
called if Doctor Strange completely lost his shit.
If Doctor Strange fucks shit up a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a you know what it's a milestone really if you think about it in sort of the Marvel Disney MCU world because it's dark and there's a lot of spoilers folks, but there's like a lot of like demonic shit in it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like evil, and it does not end happily for anyone, especially Doctor Strange.
Literally anyone, which is great.
Literally anyone. It's some dark shit, and so one of the things interesting is we talked about this before is that the Watcher was definitely more visible in this episode. In fact, he and Strange interact because
Yeah.
Strange at some point is so powerful that he can actually see him, and then they have a whole conversation. He becomes physical almost. And says, "I can't interfere. You fucked up. I wish I could just punish you, but
Yes.
go. You're an idiot, and now I'm going to leave." Bye.
Yes.
But he just basically, he can't. He's not going to do anything. He's like the Eternals; they only interfere if it's the variants, and this guy will only do anything because he can't. He doesn't want to save just one universe. He's got to worry about all the universes, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot of great things in this episode. I think this is probably my favorite episode so far because it's so fucking bad. Like everyone, shit goes wrong so much.
Yeah.
What does that say about me? I'm a weird person, I guess. But
no, I agree with you.
What do you think? You agree I'm a weird person? Thank you. Man.
Yeah. Yes, I do. No, I think this one was my favorite. Here's one of the reasons why I really, really like this episode. It had, to me, a very prominent Ralph Bakshi feel to it. Like, you remember?
I think so.
Yeah, because it felt like the characters were kind of rotoscoped, so that, now I don't know if that's the proper term, but like they did some actual like animation over live action footage, and some of the stuff in the other, with the monsters and stuff. I don't know. It just felt that way to me, and
do you think they're doing mocap? I mean, maybe they are. I mean, I don't know.
It seemed like they were for at least Doctor Strange, because a lot of his, I mean, even like the animation on his face was like dead on, and it seemed like they were doing.
Yeah, well, this was like an emotional heavy episode for Strange and for everybody involved, but mostly for Benedict Cumberbatch for playing that part. So maybe they are doing. I mean, he's comfortable, obviously, wearing the mocap suit, having played Smaug and whatever before.
It just seemed like it to me, and it had that, like I said, like the old the animated Lord of the Rings and Hobbit.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah,
that Bakshi did. It had that feeling to me, and maybe it's just because of the fantasy and magic elements. I don't know, but that's just kind of the feeling I got from it, and that immediately made me go, okay, I like it.
Yeah, there's some genuinely sort of scary and disturbing moments, like with the creatures he tries to absorb. Like the little gnome was very scary. But it's like
little gnome.
Poor little gnome. He was obviously evil. He had those terrible pointy teeth. But it's he absorbs all the creatures. He does all that kind of thing, and like takes on their form for a second, like this claw.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's some true, and people have been saying, Disney will never do. That's why people are like discounting the whole Mephisto things. Like they'll never do demonic stuff. They'll never do this. They'll never do that. But here it is. And another thing I thought was interesting, and in this episode especially, was every character in this episode was voiced by the actual actor who played them in the MCU.
Yeah.
Even Tilda Swinton like came back and whatever, which either means they're all in Multiverse of Madness, which they probably are, or they felt like, as some other people have pointed out, they felt like this was an important episode for their characters' sort of continuity, and continuing arc in the MCU. I feel like, of course, now that I see this is the Doctor Strange we see in the Spider-Man trailer, this Doctor Strange from the alternate universe?
Could be.
Because he's, as we pointed out last week, he's pretty quick to just agree to Peter's idea to mess stuff up. But also, as someone else pointed out, and I noticed this, but it didn't register to me until after someone pointed it out, which I guess sounds weird, but there's no scars on his hands in the trailer.
Oh. Well,
and his hand,
maybe they just haven't added them yet.
And his hands don't shake.
Maybe they haven't added them yet.
Maybe, but I also feel like he's drinking that tea, and his hand is very prominent in the trailer. So I'm wondering if the point is that this is not Doctor Strange. This is an alternative universe, which is interesting, because if it's a multiverse or whatever, then Peter, if we were talking about how he's maybe unstuck in time, maybe this is Doctor Strange from a different universe that he goes to find help from, and so it could be a Doctor Strange that never lost his hands, like in this What If episode. So
trailers mix stuff up, so that Doctor Strange, it might not even be the one that casts whatever spell that throws him across the multiverse. It could be a different one. You're right. So
that's true. It could, a lot of it could be
see
different.
multi Doctor Stranges in this one. So.
Well, people are already talking about the credit sequence, post credit sequence of Shang-Chi where Wong does something. I haven't looked at it because I don't want to know, but
no, I know
it definitely ties in with multiverse. But if they're going to all this trouble to establish all this stuff, then I feel like these things tie in. What If, I feel like, ties in with the greater MCU.
What if it tied in with the greater MCU?
And I also feel like the tentacle character, which is, the tentacle monster, which some people are speculating, and I kind of believe it might be Shumagorath, but maybe not. Could be one of the elder gods. Could be a continuity thing because he was in the episode with Captain Carter too.
Keeps showing up, so that's leading to something.
It's leading to something, and there is a shot in the trailer, I think, for What If, where Strange and Captain Carter are in the same scene. So do they meet up later? Because is Shumagorath the tie-in who keeps them together, or is that power able to rescue Strange from the tiny crystal he ends up in at the end, which is a strange way to go. But if you, I guess if we're thinking about it, that is, I can't remember what they called it, but that's something they create to shield them, right? What's it called? The sorcerers create.
I forget now too, but yeah.
I remember Shumagorath,
so he could
points for that, but
make it out of that universe then.
Well, yeah, he could. He's still alive. I mean, so he could go somewhere else if someone could break him out, because I mean, the universe is just his is the one that's destroyed, but there's obviously more universes. Right. So he could travel to a different one, and maybe he does. Maybe he just in the next scene, does the little spinny thing and goes through a time hole or something. Or the TVA comes to get him because he did a time anomaly thing.
He did a bad. Yeah.
He broke an absolute point in time, right?
Yes. I did. I think my favorite voice though in the whole episode. Well, no, but I like the nice little nod that they actually had Leslie Bibb come back as Christine Everhard. However briefly, but it was like, wow, that's a real kind of call out to the past, and that's a nice little continuity thing.
Well, she's been in quite a few episodes. I mean, she's been in all the Iron Man movies and stuff, and she's been around. So
yeah, but it's just like,
I'm not saying because she had sex with Tony Stark, but that's not why she's been around. But I helped him take out the trash, which I thought was a funny line. But
yes, that was quite nice.
Good old Pepper Potts.
But it's just kind of
not jealous at all.
It's just kind of fun that character keeps popping up, and in this instance, it could have been any newscaster, right? But they decided to make it her, and that was kind of cool.
Well, they did, and that's what I mean. It's like every character in this was someone from the MCU, the original actors who played them. So that's what I mean when I say that I feel like this episode gives the most credence to the idea that these are canon. This is something that's actually happening. Right. Granted, it's What If, so they could just disavow it later and say, oh, it was another universe, it doesn't matter. But how does it tie in with the larger thing? I don't know. But it gives you ways that's why this is a cool show. I think it gives you ways to explore these characters in different ways that you can't do necessarily with no consequences. But I gotta wonder if it is going to affect things, how this sort of event of Strange destroying this universe basically and messing with time and destroying an absolute point, how does it mess with what does that do with Kang, or what does that do with with all this stuff? How does it fit in together? I don't know. It's just a lot of things to think about.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Good old Uta the Watcher. But there's a lot of things in this episode that I liked. These visual clues, like after they have the car accident, they show like the wider shot where they're looking through the glass of the window and it's like shattered in the pattern of the thing he gets stuck in. And there's a lot of points in the episode where things are split in two. Like he's walking up to the window and he's split in two, and the guy he meets has two different color eyes, which I thought was kind of interesting. So
there's a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah, they went to. That's another reason why I like this episode so much. I really feel like they went deeper into it, to do a lot more. To make the stakes higher. Obviously, the stakes were higher, but it was just a really good episode, and I don't mind the darker stuff. I mean, I guess you could say that WandaVision was kind of dark because
it was pretty dark.
It's about death, but this is like he was so, angry and so what's the word, entitled, such a millennial that Strange decided that his arrogance was the only thing that mattered, and that's what destroyed the universe. So does he still have that? I doubt that he's like totally out of that arrogance thing.
Right, and is that still? Yeah, that's still within the prime universe, Doctor Strange, which makes it like, ooh, so this guy could be the destroyer of worlds on a dime. That's not really cool. But
well, does that mean he's the villain of multiverse?
maybe here's the thing I'll tell you too, that this made me actually reevaluate the previous episode, and I'm like, because I guess my biggest thing about Hank Pym killing all the Avengers, spoilers, was I can't see that he would become that unhinged, and this kind of helped me go, yeah, you know what, that's possible, and that's kind of the point of what if. It isn't like I know a lot of people are like, well, Doctor Strange is inherently good, and he wouldn't really do that. And I'm like, well, that's not really the point of these stories. It's like, well, what if they did do that, right? It's right there in the title. It's like, what if what happened did cause them to become that unhinged? That's the story they're telling, right? So I get now a little bit better. Yeah, you know what? In the right circumstances and for the story, I can see Hank Pym doing that. So it made me reevaluate and appreciate that one a little bit better. So,
well, I also wondered because they talk about how it's like, I wouldn't believe that Strange would do that. He's inherently good. But then what would have happened if the Ancient One hadn't come along and split him in two? Because I kind of feel like, arrogant, evil, Strange, whatever bad stuff went one way and the good part of him went the other way. Yeah. So if she just left him together, would he eventually have come around and said, this is stupid, and listened to Wong and gone and had tea instead and not destroyed the universe? Or would he have continued? I kind of feel like if he is inherently good, then he would have come around. But his ego and arrogance definitely come out in Doctor Strange movie, obviously, but also in the Avengers movie too. I'm here to protect your reality, douchebag. I mean, he's like he doesn't take shit from anybody. And I kind of think he was like that way as a surgeon, obviously, but then becoming the Sorcerer Supreme and being so powerful, maybe he gets corrupted by it a little bit, and he knows that he's tough. Now, was he humbled more by being snapped away? I don't know. Or by fighting Thanos? Did that make him come around?
I don't know, because he was still like, yeah, I'll totally sacrifice Tony Stark for the universe. Why not? Right?
Well, that's, but that wasn't his choice. Like, he saw all the possibilities, and that was the only possibility where, they won because Tony had to die.
Right.
Spoilers. Sorry. Iron Man gets killed. If you haven't watched Avengers Endgame, then I don't know what you're even doing with your life. But anyway,
I guess my kind of point is coming back to, like, everyone's like, oh, he wouldn't act that. It's like, well, first of all, you say that as someone with your experiences in hindsight and not in the moment of a decision. But second of all, these aren't real people. They're going to make decisions and do whatever is necessary to tell the story that's trying to be told, right? So that was the story they were trying to tell. So he is going to behave that way and make those decisions.
He is, but also you don't know what you would do.
Right.
Grief is a powerful thing. I mean, Hank Pym lost his wife and his daughter, right? So he was extremely grief-stricken and probably felt like he had nothing to lose. He's like, I'm just going to get revenge because fuck these guys for causing me all this suffering. And Strange is like, I'm entitled to this happiness. Can't we just be happy? I mean, he even says that basically in the episode. Why can't we just be happy? Because he feels entitled. And so he will do whatever. The things that made him a great surgeon, the things that made him a great sorcerer are also the things that drive him to try to tamper with things that can't be tampered with, that people tell him you should do. He's like, yes, I can. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm the fucking Sorcerer Supreme.
Right.
And, so I can get this power. I can do it. Now, again, would he have done it if he'd not been split into two Stranges? I don't know. But I kind of feel like he would have. And that's interesting and has interesting implications for the rest of the MCU, because is he like this in every universe? Will he revert to this, which I guess would explain why he's like, Peter, sure, I'll cast this spell. Fuck it, who cares? I'm the fucking sorcerer. Wong will clean up the snow,
But still, the story they were wanting to tell is basically Doctor Strange destroying the universe. So he's going to make decisions that you don't agree with in the moment to get there. It's the same thing with people are like, well, why didn't Thanos just decide to use the stones to increase food and stuff like that? It's like, that's not the story they were telling. It wasn't, hey,
he's crazy.
Thanos is magnanimous. No, it was him. That was the point of the story, is that, hey, here's this guy that's going to wipe out half the universe. How do we deal with it? That was the story, and it wasn't him going, hey, never mind, I'll make more fruit trees, right? So So
Well, I don't think you can. I don't think you can argue with Thanos because in that incarnation, Thanos is just crazy. He's like,
right,
he's
yeah.
insane, and his plan is this is how I'm going to make things right or whatever, restore balance or whatever. But he's
It's been
basically
his
just a
plan
nut.
for
He's a
so
nutbar.
long that he's like, I'm committed to this and I'm not giving
Well,
up
no,
on
he's
it.
crazy. He's
But
a nut
yeah,
job. So he's going to
yeah,
just do it. But in a different universe or whatever,
he
he
got
could.
talked down.
He's malleable. I mean, people
Right.
can. But I guess if no one, maybe he just didn't, get played with enough as a kid or something. But it's
And
like
maybe somebody will tell that story
what
one
if
day.
Hitler had been accepted to art school or something? I don't know.
Right. And maybe someone will tell that story someday. It's not,
Maybe.
the point is, again, these aren't like real people. They're characters that serve a story. And,
Yeah, I know. I know. I guess I'm resisting that because I feel like as a writer that the things in the story should be motivated by character and not the other way around. And I feel like if they're telling this story, they're saying, yes, this is what's going to happen, but it's also motivated by the fact that this character is the way they are. So, but yeah, I
well,
mean, you're
I'm
right.
not
It's
saying that,
both.
yeah, it is both. And it's
Yeah.
like he just made a series of ever increasing bad decisions. And it's like, just to say that, well, I know him. He wouldn't do that. It's like you don't know him. He's a fake character. He
Well,
doesn't exist. you
right,
know.
right.
So
Yeah, and you're right. They are telling these stories and all that, and there's some kind of thing,
yeah,
dramatic license, whatever you want to call it. But
there.
at some
And
point,
if you
you got
want
to
to press,
imagine that they think about this kind of stuff.
yeah, but if you want to
And
press it, these are alternate stories. They're not going to act like the characters that you know because they're not the
right,
same characters.
right,
So
exactly.
if
That's an
that
explanation too,
helps,
and
you
that's
know,
why you do it in this context because
yeah,
then you can have people do things that are out of character, somewhat,
yes,
because they're still kind of acting the same, but not exactly the same, which is why you don't see. Steve was not Captain America, but he was still fighting. He was still a good guy. He was still doing stuff. Strange is still an egotistical prick, but he's still, but he's
yeah,
also entitled and whatever. And he kind of goes to the extreme. You know, T'Challa was still a good guy and managed to influence, the universe instead of and make it
yeah,
better and stop
yeah,
genocide and stuff. So I mean, it's like the same. They're the same people mostly, but they just have different circumstances. I just
yeah.
still am waiting for Marvel Zombies. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but that's going to be awesome. So
Yeah, but I still think they're leading to something because you're right. The tentacle guy keeps showing up, and the Watcher
yeah.
is becoming more and more physical and more of a player. So
Will he? Well, if a player, will he
yeah,
intervene though? Is the question. I don't know if he
I don't
will.
know. He did in the comics every once in a while, but
Well, I like the fact that if it is Shumagorath, I like the fact that that's a big villain that appears in Doctor Strange comics, especially.
yeah,
In fact, that's the creature that kills the Ancient One in the comics. But if I
exactly.
remember, in one version at least, if I remember. But if they're going to bring him or it into maybe that's the villain of Multiverse of Madness. Who knows? Maybe
Could be.
maybe the Elder Gods figure into it, and that kind of figures into. I just like I said, I hope Cthulhu makes an appearance.
Yeah,
That'd be cool, but I don't know if they will. I mean, again, it's public domain, so he could make an appearance, or some Cthulhu-like creature. But
yeah.
tell me that Strange at one point did not look like Mephisto in that episode, though. He totally did. So
All right. Mephisto's not going to show up. I'm just
I
saying.
know, but he totally looked like Mephisto in that one in the thing when he absorbed the multi-headed ram creature and the other thing. It's like what the
Yes.
fuck.
Yeah.
You gotta. I mean, I saw on one YouTube channel that I watched. I saw that they slowed all this stuff down, especially that sort of montage of him as different creatures. There's some scary, like not scary to me, but I'm like some weird shit in some of those quick pops of him transmuting into stuff.
Indeed. Yes. So it was a really good episode.
Anyway,
though,
yeah, I loved
like
it. I thought it was yeah.
Yeah.
So
And what I like about this, and I suppose, I could go online and find this, but for whatever reason, I don't see any readily apparent information on each subsequent episode, so I have no idea what the next episode is going to be, which is kind of fun to me. And I suppose I could find that if I dug through the interwebs enough, but I'm kind of enjoying not
yeah.
knowing until the episode airs what it's about. So that's kind of fun.
Well, I feel yeah, yeah. There's going to be zombies. There's going to be. I wonder if the episodes are going to get progressively darker because eventually there's a timeline with the zombie apocalypse where the Avengers are all
Yeah.
zombified.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree with you, and that's what I like about this whole idea of these Disney Plus shows. In a lot of ways, they don't release a lot of information.
Yeah.
And the few people who get screeners and stuff, like I don't even try to get screeners of these because I don't want to know, I don't want to see them. I kind of like the mystery. It's fun, and for some reason it doesn't bother me because I was just bitching about having to wait for shows coming out every week. But for some reason, for these, it doesn't bother me. I don't mind the waiting. The anticipation's fun. So I'm changing my tune a little bit. I just want to binge like Ted Lasso, but I don't want to binge these because I like the fact that they're unfolding. And plus, I think about these a little bit more. Yes, they're just an animated TV show, and it's all just fake. I got it. But it's still something I think about. Like I watched this episode on Wednesday, and here it is. We're recording on Saturday, and I'm still thinking about it because it was
exactly. And I'm probably going to watch it a few more times too.
Yeah, I did watch it twice. It's that intense for younger viewers. But I would say it's probably the most. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen everything Disney's ever made, but I feel like it's probably one of the most intensely sort of satanic things that Disney's ever made. For sure.
Yeah, I don't think they've really gone with anything this dark, so that's kind of surprising that they're open to that. But
well, on a platform that clearly says Disney Plus,
and animated, which is traditionally still kind of skewed towards a younger audience.
Yeah,
this is very much not.
You could make the case that there are adult themes in Disney animated films, like in almost every Disney animated movie. The father's dead. I mean, the dad's absent father.
Right.
So what does that say about Walt Disney had no father figure? But there's a whole other discussion about that. But it's just there are some dark, like in Lion King and things. There's some dark stuff relatively, but this is, I would imagine, probably the most sort of evil. Again, I use the word satanic, but kind of like the most satanic kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, although they did make Escape to Witch Mountain, but they weren't witches. So
no, they weren't actually witches.
They weren't actually. Spoiler: they were aliens. Sorry, folks.
Spoilers on a 40 or 50-year-old.
At least 40. I love that movie, by the way, man.
I loved both of those. I was I wanted to go hang out with Tony and Tia. Just saying, because I'm like, they seem pretty cool. I would.
I know this is nerdy, deep nerd stuff, but one of the highlights of my early career was I got to work with Ike Eisenman or whatever, how you ever say his name, the guy who was in there. I was like, oh yeah. Are you guys still friends? It's like, you're a weirdo. Get away from me.
Yeah, he's like, can I get a different person?
Security.
Yeah.
Get this kid out of here. And of course, he appeared in the first Star Trek movie too.
He did. Oh no, it's Star Trek 2.
Oh, you're right. It was Star Trek 2. That's right. That's right. But he's Scotty's nephew. Although they don't say that in the movie.
They do in the director's cut.
Do they? Oh, they mentioned it. Okay, good. Yeah, because in the original movie, I didn't make the connection. But then someone's like, "Oh, I think that's supposed to be Scotty's nephew."
Spoilers on a 40-year-old movie or 30-year-old movie, he dies. But
he does die. Yeah, Scotty carries him to the bridge for some reason.
Instead of going to sick bay. But hey, whatever.
Like, look, I found a body. Captain,
where do I go?
What do I do with this, Captain? I'm like, get the fuck out of here, for one thing.
Speaking of making decisions when you're grief stricken, he got in the turbo lift and just said bridge without thinking about it.
Exactly. So. I just think
there's a what if out there. What if he had gone to sick bay instead?
He could have. Yeah, the guy was still alive at that point, and
he ends up, in charge, captain of a future enterprise because of it. So
right, Scotty makes a better decision. I think Scotty was a great character, but I think he was always destined to be like an engineer because that's what he loved. He loved engines, and he loved, being the miracle worker. I won't do a Scottish accent. Sorry, I apologize for even trying it, but
you never do that.
I won't, but he just enjoyed that. I mean, he got a few moments to shine here and there. In like Star Trek 4, he definitely shined. Going to find the transparent aluminum. That was a great scene. Like talking to the computer and stuff was classic Jimmy Doohan.
Well, he had a good moment in Star Trek 3 in sabotaging the...
handing the chips to Kirk or whatever, Yeah,
so...
Yeah, Scotty was a great character. I love Scotty. But I don't know what your opinion of the Simon Pegg version, but it's hard to top James Doohan, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think,
and I think Simon Pegg would probably be the first person to say that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and thankfully he wasn't trying to be James Doohan. He took the character and made it his own, and I think that was the wise choice for all of them in those movies. But there was no way. Yeah, there's no way to top Jimmy Doohan. He's just fantastic. Even his kid in some of the fan productions has played Scotty, and it's just like. It's not quite the same. So
I think he was one of the first characters that I was like, oh, engineers are cool,
Yeah,
Because my dad was an engineer, and of course, when you're a kid, you either think your dad is cool or you think he's not cool. And my dad was cool for a while, but then he was not when I got older. But I always thought that being an engineer was cool because of Scotty. I mean, he basically was the reason that Kirk lived. Lots of times, he saved the Enterprise. Basically, I need warp speed in 3 minutes, or we're all dead. And Scotty's like, yeah, no problem. I got 2 minutes for you, Kirk, right here in my pants. Or whatever. He's like, fuck it, I got giant balls. I don't care. And saves everybody multiple times, you know. And it's just, and you gotta love Kirk, though. I mean, he's just like, I'm not gonna die.
Yeah, exactly.
Something's gonna happen. I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm just gonna, you know. Yeah, it's just an interesting show, especially early Star Trek. It's just such an interesting. The Kirk was just like a character you didn't necessarily think could be in charge of anything because he's so reckless, but it always worked. He always pulled it off somehow.
It's like, here's this impossible task. You and everyone you know are about to die. And he's like, nah, that's not going to happen.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Exactly. Yes.
Baby.
Yeah.
So anyway. We could go on about Star Trek a lot. Maybe we will someday, but
we'll do a deep dive into Star Trek.
Yeah, it's such a rich history of that show and so many incarnations, and I'm so looking forward to the new season of Disco and
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to
Picard and the new movie they're working. I mean, it's just it's a great time to be a Star Trek fan.
It's a cornucopia of riches or something.
Yes. So, yes.
Are we done with What If, or do we want to talk about anything else?
I think we probably should move on. I think it's good. That's a good length for an episode, I think.
That's a good length. Yeah, it's already ridiculously long, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I'm gonna have that mental image of Scotty at the bridge with his nephew now for the rest of the day. poor Scotty.
Well, they were releasing the first 4 Star Trek movies on 4K that they've completely remastered and redone from the original negatives. That's coming out, I think, later this month. I'm kind of looking forward to that. So
take my money.
Yeah, and apparently it was a Digital Bit did a review of the set and they say it looks just gorgeous. It's pretty amazing. So.
Well, you know, people talk shit about film, man, but you can't go back to a digital thing and do that because the resolution's not there if it's not there. But you can go back to film and remaster that shit. It's still going to look good.
Yep, you can get the originals, prints and elements and make it good.
It was a pretty high quality capture medium in the back of the day.
That is very true. Yep.
There's a lot of resolution there, and there's a lot of a lot of stuff to dig into. So I wonder if in that scene you'll be able to see that he's still breathing. Kirk's what the fuck?
I got to tell you,
was Bones on the bridge at that point though? No, he wasn't. Right?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think
in any, I'm one of those that like any scenes like that, especially if it's a main character dying, I always look to see if I can catch them breathing. Usually, I mean, movie and TV makers are pretty good about, angles and stuff. But when they get audacious and they're like, we're just going to show the full body for an extended scene of someone grieving over them, I'm like, I'm looking. Are they gonna? Can I see them breathing? So
yeah,
I don't know. It's
Wait, are you breaking the fourth wall there? No, you're breaking the mystery of the world, the filmmaking process. The people in the movie that are supposed to be dead are not actually dead.
No, they're not actually dead. They're just.
It's not a snuff film. They're just pretending. They're only mostly dead. So.
Yes.
Yeah, now I have to watch the movie again. So.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean, Wrath of Khan is a great movie, so I would watch that again.
Yes. So. It's not only a great Star Trek movie; it's a great film. Period.
It is. It's really well done, and it's one of my favorite sort of subgenres, I guess, if you want to call it. It's the submarine film, which also is
really
fun.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah, I love submarine stuff. It's like Enemy Below, which is also one of my favorite Star Trek episodes from the original series. Turnabout Intruder, which is a great episode.
Yes.
Where they basically have they find the Romulans or whatever. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Again, we're not going to get into Star Trek too much as we already did. No. Yeah. So, okay, great. So find the Flickcast at Stitcher and Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other places to find these kind of things. You can find Joe, What Joe Writes on the Twitter, and you can find me at Chris Yu, and you can find the Flickcast at TheFlickcast. Coincidentally.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/TheFlickcast. Keep the show going. We actually redid the website, so it's easier to find stuff. Hopefully.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Newer, improved graphics and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Anything else? No, that's it. All right, so for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.